If you were anything like me growing up in the 2010s, one of the first anime you were ever recommended to watch was likely Death Note. The thrilling cat and mouse drama was many people's introduction into anime, along with Fullmetal Alchemist and Attack on Titan, of course. For me, it was the third or fourth show I watched, and I loved it. And like any teenager just getting into anime, I went online to find similar shows to watch. One show was recommended far more than anything else: Code Geass. Both shows star genius high schoolers who use their wit and a supernatural power granted to them by a mysterious character to change the world. They both had strict rules around said power that the main character experimented with to fully understand, and had a double life as both a normal person and a public figure going by a four-letter title. Both had a close friend who they had to hide their power from, who was trying to catch their public persona, and with whom they had homoerotic tension. And both ended with, well, I'm sure you know if you are watching this video. If not, be warned, spoilers are ahead. This video is intended for people who have seen the entirety of Death Note, as well as both seasons of Code Geass. So, I watched Code Geass as well. But what became apparent to me very quickly is that the two stars of these shows, Light and Lelouch respectively, were extremely different and often diametrically opposed characters. Beyond these surface-level similarities lied two characters who see the world differently on a fundamental level. And yet, when I would look up analysis or review videos of either show, once I had finished them, I would constantly see the main characters compared to one another as if they were very similar. If you treat these characters solely as metrics of power scaling, maybe there is some merit to that comparison, but I think we should engage with the media we consume on a deeper level than that. How would these characters view each other? If placed in the other show's world, how would they act? Who would they support? Do they think in similar ways? These are the sorts of questions I want to answer in this video. Let's start with Lelouch. While he started his life as a member of the Britannian royal family, Lelouch's life has been marred by violence and war. His own mother was murdered, and his sister, Nonali, crippled when he was just 8 years old. He was exiled to Japan, but they had to live through a bloody invasion of their new home just 2 years later. He lost everything except his sister, who he went into hiding with, living as average Britannian citizens of a newly occupied colony. In short, he has had a very traumatic life before the start of the show. The one thing he has going for him is his high intelligence and charisma. That is until he meets C2 and gains his Geass power, the ability to compel anyone to follow his commands. We know that in Code Geass's universe, people's Geass reflects their deepest held wish in some way, usually with an ironic twist. C2 wants to be loved, and therefore is given the power to force people to love her. Charles was for a world without lies and was given the power to make someone's life a lie. Mao wanted to connect with others, and so was forced to hear their thoughts. So, what does Lelouch want? Well, he wants a lot of things, but most of all he desires to create a gentle world, one in which kindness is extended to everyone and violence is not necessary. And so, he is given the power to compel people to do whatever he wishes, the highest form of violence someone can be the victim of. He is violating them at the most fundamental level and taking away their humanity in many respects. It is similar to Light's ability to control someone completely before they die. But unlike Light, Lelouch realizes that his power is one that is wrong, one that no one deserves to be subject to, yet he uses it anyway to achieve his goal. He feels immense guilt throughout the series for this, and second-guesses his own actions and motives often. He could just Geass thousands of random people and build a giant army, but he doesn't do that. He builds up a following of devoted soldiers who join him of their own free will, and uses his power only when he absolutely has to achieve his goal. Well, at least until the end of the show. Throughout Code Geass, Lelouch interacts with a wide variety of people and makes friends and allies with people of various classes, nationalities, genders, social statuses, and backgrounds. He sees what life is like in Japanese ghettos, among the honorary Britannians and Japanese lucky enough to get a job in the settlement, how your average Britannian citizen lives, the lives of upper-class aristocrats, and even the highest echelons of imperial power. He sets up a global federation made up of people from across the world. He even explicitly rejects nationalism in his movement. It would be very easy to tap into Japanese nationalism by giving his group a Japanese name and using Japanese symbols, and it would surely gain him more followers far more quickly. But he does not do that. While his movement is Japanese to an extent, it never leans into that. He always states that his goal is to build a new Japan for people of all races, religions, and ideologies. Later in the show, they even leave Japan entirely and fight for the freedom of the Chinese people, and then effectively become the military of his world's UN. In short, he comes to understand most types of people. He starts the Black Knights to protect Nonali, but by the end of the show, he realizes that he is fighting for much more than just her. He defeats the final villain of the show, Schneisel, not through grand tactics or sheer violent power, but by understanding what type of person Schneisel is, and how he thinks. Why he does what he does. Lelouch does not think of himself as better than other people, and is severely punished whenever he gives into hubris. In fact, I would say he likely views himself as worse than basically anyone in the series, besides his father Charles. During the Zero Requiem, he breaks down after seeing Nonnally is alive, and questions all that he's been doing, all his horrible actions. It takes Suzaku yelling at him and reminding him of what he promised to get Lelouch back on track with his plan. And speaking of the Zero Requiem, this is when Lelouch finally does give in and use his Geass to grab absolute power and build a slave army to serve himself. This is probably when Lelouch is the closest to Light, using his supernatural power to become the god of the world and not caring about who he hurts to get there. But this is a facade. Lelouch never stops caring about the people he hurt and killed, nor is he using his power for personal gain. He's using it to present the image of a tyrant, enslaving the whole world under his boot to make everyone, from Britannians to the people they colonized to those who were independent before the end of the show, hate him. He is not becoming the god of the New World, but the devil. And to finish this off, he has himself killed. This not only frees the world politically from him and his regime and allows him to move into the future, but also frees most of the people whom he Geass to serve him personally. Unlike Light, Lelouch never has the hubris to believe that he can decide what is best for the world, that he deserves to rule. He explicitly rejects that when he fights Charles. Instead, his actions are meant to free the world from colonial empires like Britannia and allow them to define the future for themselves. He also pays a steep price for his crimes and accepts it willingly. Light breaks down when he is caught and never accepts it. Lelouch gives up his control. Light never does. That is why they are different. But it's not the only reason. Light is a golden child of Japan. He's the #1 student in the country and highly intelligent and able to think on his feet. He's handsome, popular, and charismatic. He has a family who loves him and seem to be functional and fairly wealthy. His dad is the chief of the MPA, a government agency that coordinates the actions of all police forces across Japan, which means that Light likely has a lot of connections and high levels of government that could serve him well in the future. He gets into an elite university and was a Japanese tennis champion in middle school. He's got the full package, and because of that, he's bored. He doesn't really have any hopes or dreams. Sure, he wants to become a police officer, but the show implies that this is not due to some dream of helping people or pursuing a meaningful career, but because he thinks solving crimes will cure his boredom. The show takes great pains to compare Light to L and show their similarities, one of which is that L, too, is bored. He takes these cases because they entertain him, and he doesn't have any moral qualms with sending people to their deaths, or imprisoning people in solitary for 50 days without due process. They are the same. Light also has a very childish view of the world and of morality. There are good people and bad people. The bad people deserve to be punished and removed from the world, while the good are rewarded. Light believes himself to be a good person, and therefore any actions he takes are, by definition, also good. Whenever he is challenged on this idea, like by L in episode 2 or near in the finale, he loses his cool because that accusation fundamentally breaks his entire worldview. This is the only time we see him act this way besides his victory speech over L, so it should be clear how important his own righteousness is to him. But deep down, Light is just a selfish kid who kills people to entertain himself. Because of that, he will use anyone around him to protect himself, even kill them if he must. He gets his own father killed through his stupid actions. He manipulates Misa for years, even though his amnesiac self would not even do it just for a few weeks. He will do or say anything to reach his goal of becoming God, and cares little for those he hurts to reach that position. He looks down on the world and believes he can control the masses through fear to obey him. He may even genuinely believe that this will be a good world on some level. In short, he's not Lelouch, he's Schneisel. Ta-da! That's the big twist. I'm sure you were expecting one, right? As stated before, Schneisel is the final villain of Code Geass. His plan is to use a floating platform, Damocles, filled with thousands of nuclear weapons to bomb every major city and force peace on the world through fear of this station. He does not care who he hurts in the process. He shoots his sister for disagreeing with him, nukes the capital of his own country without warning, and then lies about it to Nonnally, the person who pulled the trigger. He uses the Black Knights for his own gain and then plans to murder them all once he defeats Lelouch. He does all of this because he wants to maintain the world in a perpetual state of now. He wants war to cease, much like Light wants crime to cease. and he will do that by constantly threatening the entire world with a godly power that could kill them at any time. Schneisel is also a genius, just like Light, and initially does have good intentions and abhors senseless violence, as we see with his reaction to Euphemia's massacre. What both he and Light fail to understand is that stopping all war, or stopping all crime, will not automatically fix humanity's problems. In fact, it will make some problems a lot worse. Both war and crime are types of violence, yes, but they are not the only types of violence. Both Schneisel and Light ignore the systemic violence imposed by society. Schneisel thinks that imposing his will through fear on the world will bring peace, but all it will do is stop war. The systems and empires of his world will stay in place. Britannia will continue ruling over its colonies, and those who were colonized will continue to suffer. Democracy will never replace monarchy. The rich will rule over the poor and enforce their will on them. The strong will dominate the weak. And the weak, the poor, those on the bottom, will not be allowed to fight back because of Schneisel's machine. He is not bringing peace at all. Not true peace, not the presence of justice. All he's doing is getting rid of the tension that the weak may one day rise, or that another state may invade. And while that may represent peace for him, a royal, part of an institution that looks down on the world and only has to fear losing its power, it is not peace for those who are without power and dream of gaining it, those who dream of changing things, of the future. Similarly, Light does not recognize that crime is a result of systemic problems with society, and will not suddenly go away if you kill more criminals. Light talks about killing homeless people because they're criminals and lazy, but not the rich landlords who buy up housing in the first place and jack up prices, all legally. He does not recognize the system that keeps them homeless or in jail, that stops them from finding steady employment or getting an education that can improve their status. He doesn't recognize that people with mental health issues or addiction can get help if they're rich and live a normal life. But if they're poor, they can't afford those resources or the time it takes to get better and are more likely to fall victim to it and hurt others. He doesn't recognize that sometimes the law gets the wrong people, usually those at the bottom, or that it ignores the crimes of others, usually those at the top. He does not recognize that those the law protects, those at the top, those that he is essentially fighting for, are the ones who benefit most from this, that the law is not some equal arbiter of moral worth. It is a set of rules created to control society for the benefit of the rich and powerful. To quote Anatole France, the majestic equality of the laws prohibits the rich and poor alike from sleeping under bridges, begging in the streets, and stealing bread. And of course, he will stop any movement that has to break the law to help those people, or to threaten his own power, like the Black Knights wish to do in Code Geass. Hell, he doesn't even care if they threaten his power legally. All Light is really doing is trying to control people through fear, to cement his own power, because he, like Schneisel, comes from the top of society. He does not care about upward mobility or equality or creating a better system for all. He already has all that for himself. He is fearful of the people below him, of the poor, of criminals. He only cares about creating a hierarchy where he stays at the top, the position he earned, and everyone else stays in their lane, just like Schneisel. There is one key difference between the two, though. Schneisel truly believes that what he is doing is right. When Lelouch takes over the Damocles, he is willing to blow it up with him inside if it'll stop Lelouch. He is willing to die for his convictions. Whereas for Light, he knows what he is doing is wrong on some level, that really all his actions are for his own gain and to feed his own arrogance. That's why he doesn't accept death. He never accepts defeat, and he's killed for it. That's also why Schneisel gets to live, because even though he did a lot of evil and planned to do worse, he was genuine about it and could do good if convinced otherwise. For Light, though, once he touched the death note, his redemption was never possible. He was consumed by his own hubris. I guess that is like Lelouch in a way, who also had to pay for his own crimes through death. Oh, and if you're wondering, Lelouch would beat Light. He already beat Schneisel after all, since that is what most of these comparisons are really asking. This is post-editing inquiry here. I'd just like to say thank you for watching. I've never made a video like this before. This is my very first time working on a video essay, so I hope you liked it. I want to do more content like this in the future. Essays on some other shows I liked, maybe more Code Geass. I don't know. I have some ideas, so I hope you all look forward to that, and you have a wonderful day. Just thanks for checking out my channel.